This video will detail the removal, cleaning, and replacement of the black rings in the ends of the M108S lid. Start by removing the lid and set it on a stable work surface. Using a 1/8 inch Allen key, loosen the bolt holding the hex bar in place. The bolts have blue Loctite on the threads, and if the bolts are difficult to crack, heat the head of the bolt with a small butane torch to free the bond. Make the choice to use heat before you strip the bolt head. Loosen the bolts far enough to slide the hex bar away, disengaging the hex bar drive from the black ring. With the hex bar moved, lightly tighten the bolts to hold the hex bar out of the way. Repeat these steps on the other side of the lid. Put some padding on the floor and stand the lid up on end. Lift the lid a few inches off the floor and bring it back down squarely on the pad. You may have to do this a few times to create a gap between the black ring and the white Edna. Place the lid back on your work surface. Using a plastic pry, start widening the gap uniformly, being careful not to cock the black ring diagonally within the Edna. Be careful not to dig into the black ring or the Edna with your pry. Now that you have the black rings removed, let's clean the Edna and the gear teeth. Set the lid on end again, but with the end you're working on facing up. Use a pick to gently lift the O-ring cord out of its seat. Gently wipe the O-ring clean of grease and debris using a rag. Make sure the rag is clean. Be careful not to stretch the O-ring cord as you're pulling it through the rag. Loosen the hex bar bolts a bit and move the hex bar drive into the access window where it can be cleaned. You may need to use a pick, a degreaser, and compressed air to clean each tooth of the drive cog. Once you've cleaned it, swing the hex bar back out of the way and gently tighten the bolts. Now let's clean the Edna. You may find soiled grease, plant material, or bits of O-ring cord inside the Edna. Use a degreaser and a rag to clean it. To reinstall the O-ring cord, apply super lube to the length of the cord. Make sure the O-ring cord doesn't protrude into the drive gear window. Press the cord into the groove, again being careful not to stretch it in the process. If you've accidentally stretched the cord, no problem. Gently remove it and try again, being extra careful not to stretch it during installation. Add a good bead of super lube to the leading edge of the O-ring to assist in pressing the black ring back into the Edna. Now we can remove the bearing from the black ring. The bearing is a press fit on the black ring. Place a cloth on a solid work surface. Squarely bump the black ring down on the surface to cause the bearing to slide down the hub of the black ring. Use this method until the bearing touches the tabletop. These bearings are directional. Force must not be applied to the outer race against the direction of the arrow printed on the side of the bearing race. Use a soft pry and pry only the inner race to remove the bearing from the black ring. With the bearing removed, assess its condition and clean or replace as necessary. Then clean the black ring. To install the bearing, find the directional arrow and install in that direction. Gently and evenly tap the bearing into place using a soft mallet to fully seat the bearing on the black ring. Give it a spin by hand and look to see it's fully installed and turning smoothly. Set the black ring onto the O-ring, ensuring an even touchdown. Begin pressing down on the black ring. The tolerances are pretty tight, so cocking the black ring to one side will make it impossible to fit in the Edna. If the black ring gets pushed too far down on one side, use your plastic pry to remove it. Once you get the O-ring gripping the bearing, you may need to use a soft dead blow mallet to seat it in all the way home. Use small, even taps to finish seating the black ring. Let's reinstall the hex bar. Remove each bolt one at a time. Apply blue Loctite to the leading threads and reinstall that bolt before removing the next bolt. Tighten the bolts almost all the way, but leave them just loose enough to wiggle the hex bar. The bolt head should have a tiny bit of wiggle room within the round recess it's installed through. Push the hex bar away from the black ring that fraction of an inch that's available, then tighten the bolts. This prevents excessive gear lash. Repeat on the other end of the lid, and you're all done.